quickly. Welcome, everyone. Welcome to our spring kickoff of our webinar series. For those of you who are regulars, thank you. And for those of you who have chosen to join us today, so graciously giving up some of your time, we appreciate that as well. Also, a welcome to those folks who will watch this in archive. We often have folks reach out to us after the live event and use these webinars, so thank you. We have a real treat today with Dr. Tracy Rackensperger, one of our Advancing Employment and IHDD stars. Tracy's going to talk about real income. And so sit back and relax, turn off those devices. Joseph is with us, as well as Amy Price, both with Advancing Employment. Joseph is going to be a little busy with the tech side, so Amy and I will monitor chat and look at the waiting room. Just real quick, you can find this in the email, but I just want to remind you that we start this today with a kickoff with Tracy, but then next week we have on the 29th, always that Tuesday from 2 to 3, we have folks from the Emory Autism Center. The next Tuesday, which is the 5th, we have Trayvon's Customized Employment Success Story. And Trayvon will be joined by Ben Dell with Price Support Network to talk about the customized job at REI. On April 19th, then, a couple weeks in between, I will be talking about 22 cents an hour, my new book on sub-minimum wages. And we finish up on the 26th with a real treat, which is Mo Bunnell, who is the founder of the Bunnell Idea Group. He's probably one of, internationally, he is well known. He also has a book, but he's a podcaster. He's just a unique person in that he loves our work. He's helped with informational interviews and visual resumes, and he'll be joining us talking about the connections between employer engagement and how he does business development with Fortune 500 companies. He's a wonderful, wonderful guy. Anyway, we hope you join us for those as well and send the links out. I just want to welcome Dr. Rackensperger. Of course, she's a coworker, but she's a busy, busy person and jumped right at the opportunity to kick this off. Tracy's going to hate that I say this, but I'm going to say it anyway. Tracy makes me think about my own work more deeply. And I try to match her enthusiasm, energy, and just brilliance, but it's very hard to do. So sit back and relax. I'm going to turn it over to Tracy. Please put stuff in the chat. And yes, Amy is saying she's also a brilliant grant writer. Unlike me, she gets the grants she writes for, so that's really good. But thank you, Tracy, for doing this, and I'll turn it over to you. Thank you.
Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you, Doug, for that great introduction. Welcome to the first webinar in our Advancing Employment series. I am going to be talking about how we should be thinking about real income for people with developmental disabilities. Again, my name is Dr. Tracy Rackensperger. I am a public service faculty member at the Institute on Human Development and Disability, University of Georgia. I'm involved in many employment-related projects at the Institute on Human Development and Disability. I'm the project director of a new project called Preparing for Employment, an Advancing Employment initiative. This focuses on people with spinal cord injuries re-entering the workforce. I direct another project surrounding educating and connecting people about promoting competitive integrated employment over the practice of paying people sub-minimum wages. I will talk about this project more in a minute. Finally, I am the Resources and Outreach Manager for Advancing Employment. I work with Doug and Joseph and Amy in building a community for inclusive employment in Georgia. I put the monthly newsletter together as well as support our webinar development. I also support our providers we assist to expand competitive integrated employment for people with disabilities. These are the non-employment specific projects that include my involvement. I am the co-leader of training and dissemination for the RERC on AAC. The Rehabilitation Engineering Research Center on AAC is a collaborative center committed to advancing knowledge and producing innovative engineering solutions in augmentative and alternative communication. The RERC on AAC supports a research and development program that addresses 3 areas of rehabilitation science and engineering. I have been involved in studies relating to employment and patient-provider communication as well as self-determination. I also offer supporting informed decision-making training to providers and direct support professionals as part of the Living Well Georgia project. We are using the National Alliance for Direct Support Professionals Train-the-Trainer curriculum on supporting informed decision-making. The curriculum was developed for organizational trainers to teach the importance of supporting informed decision-making by the people with intellectual and developmental disabilities they support. I also implement supporting social roles and code of ethics trainings. Finally, I am an instructor in the Disability Studies Certificate Program. I teach directed studies. Before I begin with the main content of my webinar, I want to talk more about the project surrounding educating and connecting people about promoting competitive integrated employment over the practice of paying people sub-minimum wages. In thinking about real income for people with developmental disabilities, we must acknowledge, in 2022, it's still legal to pay people sub-minimum wages. Sub-minimum wages are the very opposite of real income. The goal to achieve in this project is as follows. To see an advocacy coalition develop that is meaningfully engaged in organizing at the grassroots and state levels to advocate for needed regulatory, legislative, and policy changes to ensure the phased ending of 14C in Georgia. For decades, it has been legal for sheltered workshops and similar human service programs to pay people with disabilities less than minimum wages. In 1938, the Fair Labor Standards Act was passed and specified standards for basic minimum wage rates and overtime pay. It also created a special exemption authorizing employers to pay wages significantly lower than the minimum wage to workers with disabilities. Progressive at the time, these wage provisions were originally created to encourage the employment of veterans with disabilities in a manufacturing-centered economy. Nowadays, paying significantly lower than the minimum wage to workers with disabilities is seen more and more as inequitable and challenging to civil rights. In 2020, the U.S. Commission on Civil Rights urged that the sub-minimum wage exception be overturned. Currently, in Georgia, there are close to 80 providers who either have or have applied for 14C waivers. In Georgia, there could be as many as 650 people who receive sub-minimum wages. So this is a new award with the Georgia Council on Developmental Disabilities. I direct it on behalf of the Institute on Human Development and Disability. The purpose of the project is to see an advocacy coalition develop that is meaningfully engaged in organizing at the grassroots and state levels to advocate for needed regulatory, legislative, and policy changes to ensure the phased ending of 14C in Georgia. We at the Institute on Human Development and Disability plan to achieve the above stated goal by 1. Increasing the number of individuals who receive training on topics related to 14C and policy making. 2. Creating a coalition. And 3. Empowering the coalition to strategize ways to eliminate 14C and shift focus on competitive integrated employment. We will do this by 1. The creation and distribution of online material and webinars, and 2. Hosting and facilitating virtual and or in-person meetings to support strategic planning activities. The very first step in achieving an advocacy coalition meaningfully engaged in organizing for policy changes to ensure the phased ending of 14C in Georgia is to enlist people who are at least curious about 14C and what it means for people who have disabilities. As we put together this project, we need more people interested in working with us self-advocates, family members, business leaders, and providers. We will use these connections to further connect with more people. We will host 3 webinars from experts regarding 14C, its origins, the changes in our society making 14C obsolete and counter to civil rights. We will cover other topics including the policy process, effectively advocating for policy changes, limitations, and options for state employees who support policy changes, and strategic methodologies, which includes coalition building. We will create online fact sheets about 14C for people to spread the word to other people and policymakers. This will happen during the first 7 months of the project. The last 5 months of the project will be devoted to developing and organizing a formal coalition, using the people who have been with us. We will meet 3 times with a facilitator to have the coalition create a strategic plan and action steps to achieve the goal of phasing out and eliminating 14C. We will support the coalition to identify the issues that need to be addressed. We will document the coalition's internal strengths and weaknesses, along with external opportunities. Next, we will determine specific objectives and timelines to achieving the ultimate goal. Finally, we will assign people to carry out these objectives. So join us. If you are interested in this project, please email and subscribe to our mailing list. Doug, can you put these links in the chat for me? Let's get on with the main content. We talk a lot about employment for people who have developmental disabilities. Yet, our service systems are built on the notion people cannot produce income. We have systems that actively discourage people from making money. As a professional as well as a person with developmental disabilities who can look outside the service world, I will share insights and suggestions regarding our approaches to supporting people who depend on services. I will discuss what we are doing right and how we can improve the things we are not doing correctly. This webinar has information for everyone: providers, vocational rehabilitation staff, school transition specialists, family members, and people with disabilities. To start the day off, I want us to do an activity. I want everyone to go to this website. Again, Doug, can you post that link in the chat? Please list 3 goals you would like to accomplish in your life. Use the sticky note tool for each goal. It's the 4th tool on the left-hand column. If you have difficulty using the Jamboard, feel free to use the chat box or unmute yourself. I'll ask Doug to read some of them aloud. I have already put some of my goals. Climb the promotion ladder at UTA. Have farm animals on my farm I bought with my sister last year. Finally, be in a long-term relationship with someone. What are some of your life goals? My colleagues have put goals on there too.
So,
I like this one, Tracy. Keep the squirrels out of this year's vegetable garden. It's not a bad one. Not a bad one at all. Amy, I don't know if you can post that link. I can't. I'm sorry. Travel the world.
Joseph posted it, so everyone should have it in the in the
that's
link.
good.
Yep.
Good way to go, Joe. Travel the world, work less, and spend more time with family and friends. And what am I missing here? Amy, you jump in too.
Sure. Retired, live in the mountains by a body of water. Have the animals on my farm. I think that's the one you already shared.
Go to Europe. Be sure my work always matters and makes a difference. How nice.
Retire and live like the Golden Girls.
Now that is fantastic.
Help my sons finish college and get jobs they like.
That's a great one too. I love that.
Learn all I can and laugh every day. Learn to use each day to its fullest, enjoy life. I'm loving these. Retire and doing nothing for a couple of months than travel.
This is fun, Tracy. Tracy, now I'm going to give away something. I didn't do mine. I forgot to do it. Now I'm jealous.
Learn something new every day.
Let's get a couple more. Come on, these are fun. Jay McKay from Rhode Island, is yours in there? Because you're already traveling and living your best life. Right, who's able to do that? How's someone? All right, clearly I've gotten too old for technology.
Oh, here's some. Read.
Did you guys see that someone wrote "Change the World" on the screen?
Yeah, it's so cool,
Cool.
All right, Rackensperger, you're showing us all up again.
Have a rescue animal ranch. Some cool ones.
Can we go back to the PowerPoint?
Thanks, Tracy. Thanks.
According to positive psychology, quote, life goals are what we want to achieve, and they're much more meaningful than just what we need to accomplish to survive. Unlike daily routines or short-term objectives, they drive our behaviors over the long run. There's no single psychological definition for them, and they aren't strictly a clinical construct, but they help us determine what we want to experience in terms of our values. And because they are personal ambitions, they can take many different forms. But they give us a sense of direction and make us accountable as we strive for happiness and well-being for our best possible lives. So, the life goals we mentioned most likely related to education, employment, relationships, personal growth, traveling, and/or recreation. Relating to employment, we might strive to get promoted or seek a new career. Education, we might seek an advanced degree or go finish a degree. Relationships, we might want to get married and/or have kids. Personal growth, we might want to go to a spiritual retreat or be involved in a place of worship. We might want to travel to Europe. Finally, we might want to kayak in Yosemite National Park. Whatever we want to do, the hard truth is goals take money. Tom Koonsman, an investment writer, says, quote, the reason money is so important is that it provides options for you to live a better life that you choose and puts you in control. Having money and being comfortable with finances also gives you freedom and options to decide how you want to live and support the things you care most about in your life. So let's take a look at what our systems ask people with disabilities to do. Individual service plan are the written details of the supports, activities, and resources required for the individual to achieve personal goals. The individual service plan is developed to articulate decisions and agreements made during a person-centered process of planning and information gathering. The general welfare and personal preferences of the individual are the key consideration in the development of all plans. If we are progressive-minded, sometimes we are, sometimes we are not, we do ask people to have life goals. We might have high expectations. We might have low expectations. We might think goals are cute for people with disabilities, when we think they are typical for people without disabilities. For example, I cringe when people say in that voice, "Ah, they want to get married. Isn't that so cute?" Some of society still think adults with disabilities are forever children. The eternal child myth. This is a concept where people treat adults with disabilities like children and discourage them from having adult behaviors and assuming adult roles. Goal setting can be a whole other webinar. But however progressive-minded we are, we still direct people to systems promoting the idea people with disabilities must be poor to get our help. We tell people to apply for supplemental security income, Social Security disability income, Medicaid waivers, and food and housing subsidies, all of which have awful income and or asset limits. Society defines the nature of outcomes for those with disabilities. Systems can either socially reproduce poverty or resist normative outcomes. Unfortunately, our systems still heavily favor socially reproducing poverty of people with disabilities. We set up an impossible choice for many people with disabilities. People with intellectual and developmental disabilities often need community-based long-term supports and services to support their needs and to live as independently as possible. This includes assistance with daily activities, such as getting dressed, taking medication, preparing meals, job coaching, residential supports, and managing money. Waiver programs help people who are older or have disabilities and need help to live in their home or community instead of an institution. However, these supports come with awful income and or asset limits. People cannot have cash resources over $2,000. For 2021, in Georgia, the monthly gross income limit is $2,382 or $28,584 per year. $28,584 per year? What is that going to pay for? What if you are married or have kids to support? Oh wait, I forgot, society sometimes thinks it's cute to get married, and people with disabilities having kids. Whoa. I want to take some time to talk about my experiences with systems. I am a person with cerebral palsy. I use a power wheelchair and communicate with an augmentative and alternative communication device. Due to circumstances, I have the luxury of being able to choose between state-funded support and good employment, asset opportunities. Not when I graduated from high school. I did try to apply for services. When I graduated from high school, I had no job. Florida was and is inexpensive to live. Florida is where I was living. And I didn't quite have college expenses covered. So I thought, hey, the state can help me. So my mom and I went to the state. Okay, I'm not easily offended. People do ignorant things all the time. Yes, it bothers me, but not to a high level. However, the two things I absolutely hate is when people question my competency and independence. The staff person assumed I couldn't read and would only talk to my mom. My mom hated this too. The staff person told my mom to never let me work and told her I needed to get rid of my savings I worked hard to acquire. Fortunately, my mom could support me as she was a stay-at-home mom. I was always pretty independent anyways, do good with natural supports and creativity, and found more scholarships to pay for college. In an ideal world, people with disabilities would not have to choose between getting needed support and making a good income. Home and community-based supports would not be tied to income and assets. So, rhetorical question, why is this a radical idea? There may be some partisan political opinions about this, but I hold some bipartisan thoughts. While still broken systems, there are some ways we are addressing increasing access to income for people with disabilities. Work incentives, able accounts, etc. are bridging the gap to at least better opportunities. I love music. I'm not a big John Mellencamp fan. But this song I like from him popped into my head when I was creating this presentation. Well, I fight authority. Authority always wins. It seems like when we fight the system always wins. And, by the way, I could never stand that little ditty about Jack and Diane. When we fight the system always wins. That does what it feels like sometimes. As we spend years in systems, often we begin to believe the systems are reality. We might have difficulty living outside of systems. Our systems are segregated, even when are community-based. I will elaborate more about that last point. Our systems love to label ordinary things. Like, community-based experiences is what we call living life. Discovery is trying new things, figuring out likes and dislikes. Community employment and integration is working jobs, visiting people to see what they do. And I included the last one to highlight how out of touch systems are with reality. Group homes, permanent residences are not seen in reality. The closest thing are college dorms. Before anyone asks, what about 4-bedroom apartments or houses shared by people? People are not grouped by shared characteristics outside of the system. We created disability service terminology, in part, because we want to be seen as the professionals we truly are in our work. Disability service terminology is not inherently bad. It professionalizes the field, serves as a method to request funding, gathers more opportunities for professional growth, etc. However, this language can be exclusionary. The Samuel Center for Social Connectedness states, quote, "Language is a powerful tool. Whether it's a formal speech or a casual conversation, the words we choose can profoundly affect those we are addressing. However, while words can be moving, they can also act to isolate. Discriminatory language has often been wielded by those in power to separate themselves from some perceived other. This discriminatory language trickles down into frequent use, and many may be unaware of the origins of terms, especially as they relate to disability. Discriminatory language can therefore become exclusionary language, even though one might not purposefully mean to insult a group. So our language can separate people. It segregates people with disabilities from community. Differently labeling things experienced by people without disabilities creates difference. We are still creating special services for what society believes are special people. Our disability service language can create strong identification with negative connotations of their disabilities because people just want to live life and our service system focuses on differences. So here are my suggestions for using disability service terminology. Use it at meetings, professional gatherings, and where people are using their professional titles and jargon. Sharing your professional job titles with people you work with is fine. But when you meet with people you support, try to use everyday language as much as possible. Employers don't need to know our terminology. They just need to know how they can make their employees productive. So what the heck does everything I have said relate to thinking about real income for people with developmental disabilities? Well, I hope this slide summarizes it. Real income is competitive integrated employment, employment maximizing individuals' potential and opportunities leading to accomplishing life goals. Real income is definitely not sheltered segregated employment, employment solely based on keeping cash and Medicaid benefits, and opportunities. So boxes are all checked. So Doug, I'm being a little sneaky. I have already said goal setting could be another webinar. This could be too. Asset building can be a way to have income. Investing in something can produce income. Low-cost investing can include vendor services. High-cost investing can be renovating your barn into an apartment to lease out. Yes, this is my plan for my barn. Thank you for your time. Now, let's open it up to questions. I can type answers in the chat or you can email me. Also, please take a few minutes to fill out our evaluation, especially if you are a person with disabilities or a family member.
Tracy, there is so much in chat that we'll get to, but I don't want to overrun that. I just want to say, Tracy, you know, I've learned so much just in this last 20 minutes that I got lost and forgot I was supposed to be helping. So I've got some questions here, but Amy, do you mind, since I'm on a phone, reading a few of those comments so Tracy can see it? And David, if you want to unmute,
Sure.
since you've really been providing some feedback, we'd love to hear from you.
I think Tracy, what we're seeing here is people are feeling very inspired by what you're saying and influencing people on career paths. Somebody said they want to do the Ph.D. Certificate from this, and just saying that what you're saying is outstanding and is critical to this conversation. So that's a lot of what we're seeing in the chat here. I will say that I myself so feel inspired by what you've shared, and I'm wondering, there's many, as you know, many people here, whether they're providers or they're a person who experiences disability or a family member, how do you see some maybe practical ways that they can apply this? If maybe they're supporting somebody in their life, how can they apply some of these things that we're learning from you with a person they are walking with or love, instead of feeling trapped in the system like you shared? Right, and I see here somebody said, I found my community. Maybe that's part of it too, of being in community with like-minded people who share similar values around this.
Yeah, I think that was Lindsay as well, mentioning that we feel the same way. We feel the same way, Lindsay. Feel free to unmute as well. Denise is saying, can we get the PowerPoint? Denise would like to go back and review, and Denise, absolutely. And we'll also, Joseph archives these on the advancingemployment.com website. So please do that. Tracy has said the system is not everything. I think
forget that.
I think there's a question here, Tracy, that really is a question I've kind of wanted to ask you, but I just don't know if there's enough time to think about it, but it's a simple one. And then there's another one around benefits planning, and I think Dr. Brady's still on as well. Maybe the two of you could address that one, since Kate also has experience in benefits planning. But Tracy, here's the question. What's your secret to productivity, Dr. Rackensperger? And then with 2 exclamation points, I'm serious. So I don't think it's just a vapid compliment. I think someone is really curious about how you do everything that you do. I don't know if you want to try to take a shot at that or not.
I'm going to type that. So if you want to talk.
Okay, gotcha. And Amy, if you'll keep monitoring the chat, while you're doing, yeah, go ahead.
Oh, I also want to let, I think there was a question there about benefits. We actually have I think something on a recording on our website from Anna Mackey, who is the benefits navigator within the Atlanta area. And so if anyone is interested in kind of knowing more about that, we do have a webinar in our sync from Advancing Employment on that. And all of us here can be resources for that.
Thank you, Amy.
Yeah. Oh, sorry.
Dr. Rackensperger, while you're still answering that one, I want to move on to Dr. Brady while you're doing that, because it does have a linkage. The question is, and I think we've all heard this before, right? It says, I'm working with a person and her family that only want their daughter to work 5 hours a week.
Oh.
She's been doing it this way for almost 3 years. They don't want to meet with benefits planners. Dr. Brady, do you want to take that one?
Sure. Hi, all. I'm Kate. I work at GCDD, but I used to be a benefits counselor. Anna Mackey is a brilliant resource. And indeed, I think you're right, Doug, right? I mean, unfortunately, that's not a unique situation because it's terrifying to think of losing the money you're feeding yourself with, right? To Dr. Rackensperger's point about how important our financial resources are to us. So people are scared to lose their SSI or SSDI. And then very often, those benefits are accompanied by Medicaid or Medicare, which could be paying for really critical healthcare needs. I mean, the best path I know for folks is to find examples of people who are in that really same situation with the same vulnerability to losing SSI and that cash monthly payments and maybe Medicaid, and to show how, there's always, if it's SSI, you're always going to end up with more money when you're working because it's a 2-to-1 ratio. And as an example, you can work full-time and retain Medicaid under what's called the 1619B exception. So that allows you to keep Medicaid while you're not getting SSI. So I know that's awfully broad for a person, but I think, if you wanted to reach out individually to us or to the Benefits Project, I think there are stories that we can share of folks who have a similar benefits profile and want to work more, but have needed to really pursue that carefully.
Thank you. Thank
Yeah.
you, Kate. Now there's a follow-up question, but I just want to get to Tracy's coolness. She has a lot of energy. I have CP. It's just a fact. It's not a bad thing. I'll just say, if you could tap into how productive and creative Dr. Rackensperger is, I think we would all benefit. Tracy, I'm going to throw this one to Kate since she was talking and has the benefits planning background. And Kate, I don't know the answer to this. I really don't. I certainly know Lindsay's joining us from Tennessee, and the ECF Choices waiver there has benefits planning in it. But Kate, the question is, and Dr. Rackensperger, why aren't more people with disabilities with lived experience trained as benefits planners? And why doesn't Georgia have benefits planning in our waivers?
Well, boy, that's a sharp question. I mean, I think one could give a really long answer, so I'll turn it to Dr. Rackensperger. But regarding why more people aren't trained as benefits planners, I think unfortunately, that funding is pretty small. So if you think about the numbers of people with disabilities who receive Social Security who would be likely candidates for benefits counseling, right? So few people are working, so you can extrapolate. That's a ton of folks. We're not funding enough benefits counselors. There's probably shy of 10 total certified in the state, including both projects. I think those jobs are certainly available to people with disabilities, but maybe we could do a better job of recruiting. And then the waivers, the real reason is we haven't pursued the community choice waiver. And Doug, you're going to know the number that is associated with that kind of waiver. But, Georgia hasn't pursued the most progressive, community-oriented waiver program that we could. And that's why it's not included. But maybe there's more Dr. Rackensperger might want to add. And Doug, I can't remember what the community choice first waiver number is.
I think Lindsay is from Tennessee, giving us a little background there. It does include,
thank you, Lindsay.
ECF Choices does in Tennessee include benefits planning, but I think Lindsay's pointing out that, not a lot of training goes with it. And we've seen that in the past through community mental health and other disability services where people give just their street advice on
Mhm.
what they think you should do, which usually ends up saying, don't go to work because you're going to lose it after $85. So I think the big part is, and maybe this is something as a community of practice we could all think about. I mean, I think it's powerful. I know a few folks who, are certified as work incentives planners and have lived experience. By that, I mean, having to try to live off of SSI, SSDI, or a mixture. I think that would be a great project for us to work on and not wait around for Georgia Medicaid and DBHDD to decide to put that in a waiver. I mean, it doesn't have to be in a waiver. So,
Yeah. Doug, isn't there also that software, DB something disability benefits?
that's right. DB 101. If you
101.
haven't seen that. Yeah. We're not a state. Kate and I tried, Dr. Rackensperger and others, we tried to get some momentum going on having that tailored. However, you can go on DB 101. I think it's just db101.org and see what I think it's a dozen states have done around that. That's at the World Institute. Did I get that right, Kate? World Institute on Disability? Doesn't sound right.
It may be. I'm gonna put the proper link in the chat in just a sec.
Okay, thank you.
And then
Well, that's the organization, that the think tank that Ed Roberts founded, who was the first person with disabilities to run California's VR system. He passed, of course, but there's a lot of good work going on there outside of DB 101 as well. David had to step away, Tracy, but he's saying can't wait to listen to the rest of the information and question and answers in the archive. Amy, go ahead, Tracy. Go ahead.
I put in the chat.
Got it. And Lindsay's right on it. Tracy says, I wasn't brought up in the system, so people didn't say no to me. That's pretty good. But of course, Rackensperger she's quoting John Mellencamp, but only a couple Mellencamp lines. Tracy, I think what I love about when you do these is just how much people get involved in the discussion. I don't think that happens on a lot of webinars, and I think that's a testament to your prodding and your ability to kind of think about systems in a deeper way. And as you said, there are several topics that you were hitting on that could be full webinar topics. Kate has put in all the DB 101 links. Lindsay says, I go for my CSP exam soon, and I have no preparation for the benefits portion of my job. It's frustrating to be in a resource desert and to be trying to advocate and self-advocate both. Lindsay, as you said, Lindsay, you have found your community. So welcome, and we hope you stay with us. Lindsay had a question, Amy, that you might be the best to address. And let me see if I can find it, but I think it's, Lindsay, it's around customized employment in a rural area. Amy, I don't know if you want to take a shot at that.
Sure. I think one thing that I mentioned in the chat, that in 2 weeks when we share the story about the customized of Trayvon and how we were able to support him through customized employment, I encourage you to come to that one, because we'll be sharing so many more resources and so many different ways to do that. One thing that I have found, no matter where we're doing this with the person, or what the setting is, if it's in a more populated, more rural part of the state, it's really just about being with the person and listening. And there, on the other hand, it's also about kind of doing the same way with employers and creating connections. And so I think that it's something that presents lots of opportunity for folks using customized employment and moving in that way. And so I could probably do a whole webinar myself on that topic, but I would encourage you and anyone else to come in 2 weeks to hear about really how we've used customized employment to create opportunities for people and the potential that it has to really help those who have more support needs and those who maybe want to work, but we've just got to customize it to make it happen.
Thank you, Amy. I'll just add to that, Lindsay, that and others, that last fall, and this is also in our archive, we had Joe, the owner of Pop and Joe's popcorn business, who relocated from the Midwest to South Georgia with his sister. His sister and he did a kind of a live webinar. It was really cool. Gave us a tour of the new production facility. So please watch that in archive. Joe and his sister Jennifer are really just dedicated to, supported self-employment as an option for folks in rural areas. And I think it's a real opportunity to blend economic development of communities with so many of the resources that get trapped inside of our systems. And Tracy was alluding to that. So please look at that one, Pop and Joe's. And then Amy, and Joseph and Tracy, for our fall webinar series, let's get a panel on customization in rural areas. I think Lindsay's brought up something there that is really important. And Toye, I always mess that up. I know you've told me, Miss Ryan. Yes, it'll be available on archive right at the advancingemployment.com website.
It's just toy, like a toy you play with. Just plain old toy.
No, there's nothing plain about you, Toy. Thanks for the question. I love it.
I put toy in the chat.
I can't find it, Tracy. Where is it? I'm scrolling on a phone. Amy,
I think
do you
I found it.
Okay,
Tracy,
thank you.
is it where you said that we still want to limit people, not the people in here, but in general?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes, thank you. Thank you. Right? Because there's so many myths there, not just around benefits planning, but earning and work and all that. We are super. Go ahead. Go ahead, Amy.
One of the things I've been thinking a lot about in listening to Tracy, and even Tracy in the comment you just made there, that I think we like to attach, this is the reason why it's not happening. If we just had better benefits navigation, if we just had better customization, if we just had, and I even myself get tied up in this, if we had better this or we had better that. But I think one of the things, my big takeaways from this conversation is it's, we keep looking to systems to fix these problems, and how are we just with people and saying, what are the ways that any of us get a job? We use our connections, we gain new skills, we understand our gifts and our talents. And so, I think for me, I really appreciate this from you, Tracy, is this really being able to think about that it's this whole thing that's not working, not just one of these little things that we may attach ourselves to. And so I'm grateful for that learning and this. And I think one of the things that I've learned too is that there's some really cool data out there that shows that states that have more bias against people have lower employment outcomes for people. And so I think, how do we change people's view on these things to help show that it's about community and not about systems to fix things? So I appreciate that learning today.
Yes.
Yeah, I think that's the thing you learn so much, and Dr. Rackensperger's put it in both the presentation and those little quips in chat, which I love, that you can be at the mercy of a system or you can challenge that system. Now, where does that get difficult? Well, that gets difficult for people who are so trapped in a system that they're dependent on professionals, as Tracy said, to get out of that, to find these more natural, unique, creative solutions. And then that becomes our challenge, right? Then how do we train ourselves to be equipped around not disability services, acronym supports, as Tracy's talking about, but in a lot of ways, economically helping people break out of those systems. And to me, that is something that I think about for my own, certainly my own sister, but in our work that we do here in Georgia and elsewhere is, for some people who are so segregated and congregated and have been paid so poorly, how do we continue to help people break free? I think that's important. Earlier today, I was doing a webinar for Aspire Rebel, I think is on Aspire Albany CSB. And we spent a lot of time on 4 or 5 folks with lived experience who fundamentally changed our systems. Roland Johnson being one of those. If you don't know who Roland is, or Lois Curtis, Elaine Wilson, Leo Saldivar, if you don't know those folks, they are really important to know and understand how they challenged our systems to do what Tracy's talking about. And I think it's a mixture, right? It's a mixture of that kind of power, Tracy's vision, and then absolutely my point, Tracy, in all caps, that vision and that sheer will of Tracy's. And how do we, all of us together, change our systems one person at a time to get out of that? And I think that's why we're so excited about the GCDD funding, not only for what we've been doing in the past, but the work that Tracy's going to be doing on building a coalition on sub-minimum wages. And for those of you who don't know, I'd just be remiss if I didn't say this. Yesterday, RSA, Rehabilitation Services Administration, put out a $160 million plus in grants for state BR agencies to apply for. And it's called Sheltered Work to Competitive Integrated Employment. And that will be in addition to the 2 bills in Congress. And I guess I'll just finally say this. As Tracy said, we've allowed sub-minimum wages for almost 85 years. So whatever we create as policy, it's not unfounded to believe that may be around for close to 100 years. So we've got to get it right. So Tracy, I want to thank you, my friend. You're getting all kinds of great feedback in chat as always, but we appreciate your perspective, the effort you put into this wonderful presentation. And I think I just love it when there are folks like you who generate real discussion. So thank you. Joseph, do you want one more time to see if you can get a few people to fill out the survey?
And Doug, you have to let me also share before we go.
Yes, yes.
We do have a monthly provider community of practice where we support each other and collaborate and look at our policy imperatives. So if you are a part of a provider or see yourself moving in that direction, we would love you to be a part of that conversation with us. We do them the last Monday of the month at 10 o'clock. So please, I'm going to put my email in the chat, and please reach out if you want to be a part of those. We're taking March off since we have these wonderful webinars, but picking up in April, I think we'll have a lot of momentum that comes from these conversations. So please, if you're a part of a provider, we'd love you to join us for those.
Thank you, Amy. I just want to read one final comment, Tracy, from Jay McKay, who's had to join another webinar, but Jay and Jacqueline are from Rhode Island's state DD agency, wonderfully talented people. And Jay says, this has been so inspirational and informative. It is so refreshing to see so much interaction. Thank you, Doug, for inviting me today. And thank you all for sharing. I don't know a better way to end. Thank you, Dr. Rackensperger. We appreciate it. Thank you, everybody.
Bye.
Fill out those surveys. Make Joseph
Bye-bye.
happy.
Yeah, do the survey, please.
Bye, Doug.
Yeah.